The conference room at Morrison and Associates smells like fresh coffee and ambition when I walk in Monday morning, my portfolio tucked under my arm and my mind buzzing with the sustainable development concepts I've been sketching all weekend. The morning light streams through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Edina, casting geometric shadows across the polished mahogany table where my colleagues are already gathering. As the only Black woman architect in our firm, I've learned to read the room's energy before I even speak, and today feels charged with the kind of professional electricity that accompanies big announcements. "Imani, perfect timing," calls out David Morrison, our managing partner, as he shuffles through a stack of official-looking documents. His salt and pepper hair catches the light as he grins with the satisfaction of someone about to share good news. "We just landed the Riverside Commons project. The city wants to transform that abandoned shopping center into a mixed-use sustainable community hub. It's a $15 million contract, and they specifically requested our firm based on our environmental design reputation." The room erupts in congratulations and excited chatter, the kind of celebratory atmosphere that makes architecture feel less like work and more like collaborative artistry. My heart skips because I know exactly what project he's describing. 3 months ago, I submitted an unsolicited proposal to the City Council outlining how the abandoned Riverside Shopping Center could be transformed into a community-centered, sustainable development. I'd spent weeks researching the site, analyzing traffic patterns, studying the neighborhood demographics, and designing a comprehensive plan that balanced affordable housing, green spaces, local business incubation, and environmental sustainability. The proposal had been my passion project, completed during evenings and weekends, driven by my belief that good urban planning could revitalize communities while protecting the environment. "Now we'll need all hands on deck for this one," David continues, his gaze sweeping across our team of 8 architects. "Michael, I want you leading the project. Your experience with commercial developments makes you the obvious choice." He turns toward Michael Bennett, our senior architect, whose portfolio primarily consists of corporate office buildings and luxury condominiums. "Imani, will need you helping out with some of the environmental compliance research. Your background in sustainable design will be useful for the green building requirements." The words land like a cold splash of water against my enthusiasm. Helping out, not leading, not designing, not contributing the vision that sparked this entire opportunity, just helping out with compliance research. I feel my spine straighten as I process the casual dismissal of my expertise, the reduction of my comprehensive urban planning vision to footnote assistance. Have you ever watched someone else receive credit for opening a door that you spent months designing, building, and unlocking yourself? I glance around the conference table and notice the familiar pattern playing out in real time. Michael nods with the confident acceptance of someone accustomed to leadership roles being offered without question. Jennifer Walsh, our interior design specialist, begins discussing timeline considerations as if the leadership hierarchy has been naturally established. Thomas Chen starts outlining structural engineering concerns, automatically deferring to Michael's assumed authority. Everyone falls into their roles with the seamless efficiency of a well-rehearsed performance, while I sit with the growing realization that my foundational work has become invisible in the span of a single announcement. The meeting continues with discussions of budget allocations, timeline frameworks, and team responsibilities. I listen while mentally cataloging the irony. They're planning to execute my vision under someone else's leadership, discussing my research as if it materialized from thin air, and treating my months of independent work as a happy coincidence that will make their job easier. When David asks if anyone has initial thoughts on approach, I mention that I've actually done preliminary research on the site, but my comment gets absorbed into the general conversation without acknowledgement or follow-up questions. After the meeting, I return to my desk and open the folder containing my original Riverside Commons proposal. The pages represent countless hours of research, innovative design solutions, and careful consideration of community needs. My sustainable housing concepts, my plans for the central green space, my strategies for integrating renewable energy systems, all of it now destined to be filtered through Michael's commercial development lens and labeled as collaborative team effort. I close the folder and stare out my office window at the city skyline, wondering how many other women have watched their ideas get redistributed through more familiar channels, their creativity repackaged as collective inspiration. 3 weeks into the Riverside Commons project, I'm sitting in my office reviewing environmental impact assessments when Michael appears in my doorway, his usually confident demeanor replaced by something that looks suspiciously like panic. His tie hangs loosely around his neck, and there's a thin sheen of perspiration on his forehead despite the October chill outside. "Imani, thank God you're here. We have a problem with the City Planning Commission. They're saying our initial design doesn't meet the sustainability requirements for the federal grant funding. Without that grant, the whole project dies." I look up from my laptop where I've been cross-referencing LEED certification requirements with the city's environmental standards, work I've been doing proactively, despite being officially assigned only compliance research. The federal grant he's referring to requires developments to achieve net zero carbon emissions within 5 years of completion, incorporate renewable energy systems, and demonstrate measurable community benefit through affordable housing initiatives. These requirements form the foundation of my original proposal, but I suspect Michael's team has been focusing primarily on the commercial viability aspects. What specific concerns did they raise? I ask, though I already suspect the answer. Michael runs his hand through his hair and slumps against my doorframe with the exhausted posture of someone who has just discovered that sustainable development involves more than installing a few solar panels and calling it environmentally friendly. Everything, he admits with a laugh that contains no humor. The carbon footprint projections, the renewable energy integration, the affordable housing ratios, the community space allocations. They said our current design looks like a standard commercial development with green paint. The commission meeting is Thursday, and if we can't present a comprehensive sustainability plan that meets federal standards, we lose the $15 million in funding. His words tumble out with increasing urgency, and I can practically see him calculating how this failure might impact his reputation as project leader. I close my laptop and pull out the folder I've been discreetly updating since the project began. My comprehensive sustainability framework that addresses every concern he's just mentioned. The document represents weeks of additional research, detailed calculations of energy efficiency systems, and innovative approaches to community-integrated design that I've been developing during my supposedly limited role. I might have some ideas that could help, I say carefully, watching his expression shift from desperation to relief. "Anything you have would be incredible," Michael says, stepping fully into my office. "David is freaking out about potentially losing our biggest contract of the year. He's been asking everyone for solutions, but honestly, most of us don't have deep experience with these federal sustainability requirements. The admission hangs in the air between us, a tacit acknowledgement that the project leadership structure might have overlooked some essential expertise. I spend the next 2 hours walking Michael through my comprehensive sustainability framework, explaining how renewable energy systems can be integrated into the building design, outlining strategies for exceeding affordable housing requirements while maintaining profitability, and demonstrating how community spaces can be designed to generate measurable social benefit. His relief is palpable as he takes notes, occasionally stopping to ask detailed questions that reveal how much foundational work his team has missed. "This is exactly what we need," he says as I finish explaining my approach to carbon-neutral construction materials. "Would you be willing to present this to the Commission on Thursday? I mean, as part of the team presentation?" The question feels loaded with implications. He needs my expertise to save the project, but he's still framing my contribution as supportive rather than foundational. That evening, I work late in my office, refining presentation materials that will essentially replace the entire sustainability portion of the project proposal. My designs for solar integration, my calculations for energy efficiency, my strategies for community engagement, all of it repackaged as collaborative team solutions rather than individual innovation. As I format slides and prepare talking points, I realize I'm experiencing a peculiar form of professional invisibility, being essential but not acknowledged, necessary but not recognized, saving the project while being credited with merely helping out. The irony crystallizes as I save my presentation files. Tomorrow, I'll present the comprehensive sustainability plan that transforms this project from commercial development to community-centered innovation. But in the official narrative, I'll still be the team member who provided helpful compliance research rather than the architect whose vision and expertise rescued a failing $15 million initiative. Thursday morning arrives with the kind of crisp November air that makes everything feel sharp and full of possibility. I arrive at Edina City Hall 45 minutes early, my presentation materials organized in a leather portfolio and my confidence bolstered by weeks of meticulous preparation. The building's limestone facade catches the morning sun as I walk through the main entrance, my heels clicking against marble floors that echo with the gravity of municipal decision-making. Today feels different, not just another meeting where I provide supportive research, but a moment where my expertise will be front and center. The City Planning Commission meets in a wood-paneled conference room that smells like old books and fresh coffee, with portraits of former mayors lining the walls like silent witnesses to decades of urban development decisions. Commissioner Patricia Williams, a woman in her 60s whose reputation for thorough environmental oversight precedes her, reviews documents at the head of a polished oak table. Mayor Robert Chen sits to her right, his expression serious as he flips through what appears to be our project proposal. 3 other commissioners occupy seats along the table's length, each surrounded by stacks of papers and official-looking binders. Michael, David, and I arrange ourselves at the presentation end of the room, with Michael positioned at the podium and me seated at a small table with my laptop and additional research materials. The seating arrangement feels symbolic. Michael in the spotlight, me in the supporting role, David observing from the sidelines with the protective attention of someone whose firm's reputation hangs in the balance. I open my laptop and review my presentation notes one final time, feeling the familiar pre-performance energy that accompanies high-stakes professional moments. "Good morning," Commissioner Williams begins, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making decisions that shape communities. "We're here to review Morrison and Associates' proposal for the Riverside Commons development. As you know, this project requires federal grant compliance, which means meeting stringent sustainability standards. Our initial review raised concerns about your environmental impact projections and community benefit calculations." Her words land with bureaucratic precision, each sentence a small reminder of what's at stake. Michael begins the presentation with an overview of the project scope and timeline, his delivery smooth and confident as he describes the commercial aspects of the development. He discusses square footage allocations, construction phases, and budget projections with the fluency of someone who has been presenting commercial developments for years. But when he reaches the sustainability section, I notice a subtle shift in his posture, a barely perceptible tension that suggests he's approaching less familiar territory. "For the environmental sustainability components," Michael says, glancing in my direction, "I'm going to have our specialist, Imani Johnson, walk through our comprehensive approach." The introduction feels both empowering and limiting. I'm being positioned as a specialist rather than a co-designer, an expert contributor rather than a foundational architect of the project vision. I stand and move to the podium, feeling the commissioner's attention focus on me with laser intensity. The presentation that follows represents months of work distilled into 25 minutes of technical expertise and innovative thinking. I explain how we can achieve net zero carbon emissions through integrated solar arrays and geothermal heating systems. I outline strategies for exceeding affordable housing requirements while creating mixed-income communities that avoid segregation pitfalls. I describe community spaces designed to generate measurable social benefits through local business incubation and educational programming. Commissioner Williams leans forward as I detail our approach to renewable energy integration, her expression shifting from skeptical to intrigued. "These calculations suggest you can achieve a 40% reduction in operational carbon footprint within 2 years. That exceeds federal requirements significantly. How confident are you in these projections?" Her question feels like a test, but one I'm uniquely prepared to answer. "Very confident," I reply, pulling up detailed energy modeling data on my laptop. I've based these calculations on similar projects in Minneapolis and Denver, adjusted for Edina's specific climate conditions and energy grid characteristics. We're also incorporating innovative building materials that sequester carbon during the construction phase itself. So, the technical discussion that follows feels like a professional dance, with commissioners asking increasingly sophisticated questions and me providing responses that demonstrate not just competence, but genuine innovation. The tide turns when Mayor Chen asks about community engagement strategies. I describe how our design includes flexible spaces that can adapt to changing neighborhood needs, how local business incubation programs will be integrated into the development's economic model, and how our affordable housing component creates pathways to home ownership rather than permanent rental dependency. His expression brightens with each detail, and I can see him visualizing how this project might serve as a model for sustainable community development throughout the region. By the time I finish the presentation, the room's energy has shifted dramatically. What began as a compliance review has become a discussion of innovative urban planning that exceeds requirements rather than merely meeting them. Commissioner Williams exchanges glances with her colleagues, and I catch Mayor Chen making notes that look more like planning strategies than evaluation criteria. This is exactly the kind of forward-thinking development we hope to see, Commissioner Williams says as I return to my seat. Your sustainability framework doesn't just meet federal requirements, it establishes new standards for community-centered environmental design. Her praise feels like sunshine after months of professional fog, warming parts of my confidence that I didn't realize had been cold. The Commission's unanimous approval comes with a standing ovation that echoes through the wood-paneled chamber. But the real revelation happens during the post-meeting handshakes and congratulations. Mayor Chen approaches me directly, bypassing Michael entirely, his expression warm with the kind of professional respect that feels both surprising and overdue. Ms. Johnson, your presentation was extraordinary. I've been involved in municipal planning for 15 years, and I've rarely seen such comprehensive innovation in sustainable community development. This project will serve as a model for cities throughout the Midwest. I feel my cheeks warm with genuine pride as he continues. In fact, I'd like to discuss having you present your approach at the Regional Mayors Conference next month. We need more developments that prioritize both environmental responsibility and community empowerment. His words carry weight that extends far beyond this single project. He's talking about regional influence, professional recognition, and the kind of career-defining opportunities that emerge when expertise finally receives appropriate visibility. The drive back to Morrison and Associates feels surreal, with Michael and David congratulating me on the presentation while somehow maintaining the fiction that I've provided exceptional support rather than project leadership. Great job helping us nail down those sustainability requirements, David says from the passenger seat, his tone warm but fundamentally misaligned with what actually transpired. Your research really saved the day. The disconnect between reality and narrative feels so profound that I wonder if we attended the same meeting. Back at the office, the celebration unfolds with familiar patterns. David sends a company-wide email congratulating the team on securing the Riverside Commons contract, with Michael receiving primary recognition for leading the successful proposal. My contribution merits a single sentence. Special thanks to Imani Johnson for her valuable research on environmental compliance requirements. The email arrives in my inbox like a document from an alternate universe, where 25 minutes of innovative presentation becomes a footnote about helpful research. That afternoon, I'm updating project files when my phone rings with a number I don't recognize. Ms. Johnson, this is Rebecca Martinez from Minnesota Public Radio. We were at today's commission meeting covering the Riverside Commons approval, and we'd love to interview you about your sustainable development approach. Mayor Chen mentioned that your presentation represented a new standard for environmentally conscious urban planning. Her words hit me like a revelation. While my own firm reduces my role to compliance support, external observers recognize innovative leadership. The interview request crystallizes something I've been sensing but haven't fully articulated. The gap between internal recognition and external validation has become a chasm. I schedule the radio interview for Friday afternoon, recognizing it as an opportunity to claim authorship of work that's being systematically attributed to collaborative effort rather than individual expertise. Sometimes the most important audience for your accomplishments exists outside the organization that employs you. Friday's radio interview takes place in NPR's downtown Minneapolis studio, a space that smells like coffee and ambition. with sound-dampening panels and professional microphones that make every word feel significant. Rebecca Martinez proves to be a thoughtful interviewer who asks questions that allow me to explain not just what we're building, but why innovative, sustainable development matters for community empowerment. For 30 minutes, I discuss my vision for Riverside Commons without having to share credit or minimize my contributions. What inspired your approach to integrating affordable housing with environmental sustainability? She asks, and I find myself describing the months of independent research that led to my original proposal, the community needs assessments I conducted on weekends, and the innovative building techniques I developed specifically for this project. Speaking about my work in the first person feels revolutionary after weeks of collaborative language that obscures individual contribution. The interview airs Monday morning during drive time, and by 10 a.m., my phone is buzzing with congratulations from college friends, former colleagues, and professional contacts who heard my name associated with innovative urban planning. The external validation creates an interesting contrast with my workplace reality, where I'm still officially the team member who provided helpful environmental research rather than the architect whose vision and expertise secured a $15 million contract. That afternoon, David calls me into his office with an expression I can't quite read. "Imani, I heard your radio interview this morning. It was comprehensive." His pause suggests he's choosing words carefully, navigating between pride in his employees' recognition and concern about individual credit claiming within team projects. I think we need to discuss how we present our work externally, especially when it comes to collaborative projects like Riverside Commons. His words hang in the air like a challenge disguised as guidance. I realize we've reached a crossroads where continuing to accept minimized recognition conflicts with claiming appropriate credit for work that's reshaping how the region approaches sustainable development. Sometimes the most professional thing you can do is refuse to let your contributions disappear into collective narrative that doesn't reflect actual contribution patterns. David's office feels smaller than usual as I sit across from his mahogany desk, watching him organize his thoughts with the careful precision of someone preparing for a difficult conversation. The afternoon sun slants through his corner windows, illuminating dust motes that dance between us like tiny witnesses to what feels like a professional reckoning. His expression carries the weight of someone who needs to address a situation that has grown beyond his comfort zone, and I can sense him calculating how to maintain team dynamics while acknowledging individual contributions. "Imani, your work on Riverside Commons has been exceptional," he begins, his voice carrying genuine appreciation layered with something that sounds like concern. "But I'm getting questions from other team members about individual recognition versus collaborative credit. Michael mentioned that some of the external coverage has focused primarily on your contributions, which can create tension within project teams." His words arrive wrapped in diplomatic language, but their meaning feels crystal clear. My visibility has become a problem that needs management. I lean back in my chair and consider my response carefully. Over the past month, I've received 3 interview requests from architecture journals, 2 invitations to speak at sustainable development conferences, and a preliminary inquiry about a case study feature in Architectural Digest. Each opportunity represents professional recognition that I've earned through months of innovative work, but each also highlights the disconnect between my actual contributions and my official role within Morrison & Associates' internal hierarchy. David, I appreciate the team approach, I say, choosing my words with surgical precision. But I think there's a difference between collaborative work and individual expertise that happens to benefit a team project. The sustainability framework that saved this project wasn't developed collaboratively. It was my independent research and design work that I shared to help the team succeed. The statement hangs between us, like a line drawn in sand, clear and undeniable. His expression shifts subtly, and I can see him processing the implications of what I've said. I understand your perspective, but we also need to consider how individual recognition affects team morale and our firm's reputation for collaborative excellence. Clients hire Morrison & Associates because they trust our team approach, not because they're seeking individual architectural celebrities. His response reveals the tension at the heart of our conversation. My professional growth conflicts with the firm's brand identity. The conversation continues for another 20 minutes, touching on firm policies, team dynamics, and professional development pathways. By the time I leave his office, I understand that continuing to accept appropriate recognition for my work will require navigating institutional resistance that prioritizes collective identity over individual excellence. The choice feels stark: remain invisible within collaborative narrative or claim ownership of work that's transforming my professional reputation. That evening, I'm working late in my office when an email arrives that changes everything. The subject line reads, "Riverside Commons Recognition, Minnesota Architecture Awards," and the sender is Janet Harrison, Executive Director of the American Institute of Architects Minnesota chapter. My hands actually tremble slightly as I open the message and read that Riverside Commons has been nominated for the 2025 Environmental Innovation Award, with my name listed as the primary architect for sustainable development design. The nomination letter details how my approach to carbon-neutral construction, community-integrated renewable energy, and affordable housing innovation represents a paradigm shift in environmentally conscious urban planning. They're requesting detailed documentation of my design process, copies of my original research, and permission to feature my work in their annual sustainability showcase. The recognition comes from the highest professional authority in Minnesota architecture, validating work that my own firm has consistently framed as helpful support rather than leadership innovation. I screenshot the email and consider who to share this news with first. The irony feels almost poetic. While my colleagues debate how much individual recognition is appropriate for collaborative projects, the state's premier architecture organization has identified me as a primary innovator worthy of their highest environmental award. External validation has reached a level that makes internal minimization increasingly difficult to maintain. The next morning, I request a meeting with David to discuss the AIA nomination and what it means for both my professional development and the firm's reputation. As I prepare for that conversation, I realize I've reached a decision point that extends beyond this single project. I can continue accepting reduced recognition within collaborative narratives, or I can claim ownership of expertise that's reshaping how the region approaches sustainable development. Sometimes the most important professional moment isn't when you prove your competence, it's when you decide to stop letting other people define the scope of your contribution. The question isn't whether I deserve recognition for transforming Riverside Commons from failing commercial development to award-worthy environmental innovation. The question is whether I'm willing to insist on acknowledgement that matches my actual impact regardless of how that disrupts existing power dynamics. The Minnesota Architecture Award ceremony takes place in February at the Minneapolis Convention Center, in a ballroom that glitters with crystal chandeliers and the kind of elegant atmosphere that makes professional recognition feel genuinely meaningful. I arrive wearing a midnight blue dress that makes me feel both confident and appropriately formal, my AIA nomination letter tucked safely in my portfolio alongside documentation of my Riverside Commons innovation. The room buzzes with conversations between the state's most accomplished architects, urban planners, and development professionals, a gathering that represents the pinnacle of Minnesota's design community. When Janet Harrison announces the Environmental Innovation Award winner, my name echoes through the ballroom's sound system with a clarity that feels almost surreal. Imani Johnson, for her groundbreaking work on sustainable community development that transforms affordable housing from obligation to opportunity. The applause that follows feels like validation crystallizing into sound, warming parts of my professional confidence that have been cold for longer than I care to admit. I walk to the stage with my head high and my smile genuine, accepting recognition that finally matches the scope of my contributions. My acceptance speech focuses on the future of environmentally conscious urban planning and the importance of designing communities that serve both ecological and social justice goals. The audience responds with engagement that goes beyond polite professional courtesy. These are questions and comments from colleagues who recognize innovative thinking when they see it. For 15 minutes, I discuss my work without having to share credit or minimize my role, speaking about architecture and community development with the authority of someone whose expertise has been officially validated. The ceremony's impact extends far beyond the evening itself. Within a week, I receive inquiry calls from 3 different firms interested in recruiting me for senior architect positions focused on sustainable development. 2 architecture schools request guest lectures about my community-integrated approach to environmental design. A developer in Chicago wants to discuss adapting my Riverside Commons model for a similar project in their downtown revitalization district. Each opportunity represents professional growth that stems directly from claiming appropriate ownership of innovative work. But the real transformation happens the following Monday morning at Morrison & Associates. David calls an impromptu meeting in the main conference room, where the entire architectural team gathers around our familiar mahogany table. The mood feels different from our usual project discussions. There's an undercurrent of acknowledgement that something fundamental has shifted in our firm's dynamics. Michael sits across from me with an expression that mixes genuine congratulations with something that might be professional recalibration. "I want to congratulate Imani on her AIA award," David begins, his voice carrying the weight of someone making an official statement. This recognition reflects not just individual excellence, but the kind of innovative thinking that elevates our entire firm's reputation. Moving forward, I think we need to reconsider how we structure project leadership to better reflect individual expertise and contribution. His words feel like a small earthquake, subtle, but reshaping the landscape of our professional relationships. The conversation that follows marks a turning point in how my role is understood within the firm. We discuss creating a new position, Senior Environmental Design Architect, that would give me project leadership authority for all sustainable development initiatives. The title comes with a significant salary increase, equity participation in environmental projects, and the autonomy to build a specialized team focused on community-centered design. It's the kind of professional recognition that I've been earning through my work, but hadn't dared to expect from internal advancement. Michael, to his credit, approaches me after the meeting with genuine enthusiasm about potential collaboration. I've learned more about sustainable development in the past 4 months than in my previous 5 years, he admits with a laugh that contains real respect. I'm hoping we can work together on future projects where my commercial development experience complements your environmental innovation. I think we could create something really powerful as co-leads rather than me trying to manage expertise I don't actually possess. Secured. That afternoon, I'm reorganizing my office to reflect my new role when Mayor Chen calls with news that transforms the scope of what Riverside Commons represents. Imani, I wanted you to hear this directly from me. The Federal Housing and Urban Development Office has selected Riverside Commons as a model project for their new Community Sustainability Initiative. They want to replicate your approach in 20 cities nationwide over the next 3 years. You've essentially created a blueprint for the future of affordable, sustainable housing in America. His words hit me like lightning, illuminating the true magnitude of what began as my weekend passion project and evolved into award-winning innovation. The project that my firm initially positioned as helpful compliance research has become a national model for how cities can approach environmental responsibility and social justice simultaneously. External recognition has reached a level that makes any internal minimization not just inappropriate, but absurd. That evening, I stand in my office looking out at Adina's skyline and realize that the professional transformation I've experienced goes far beyond this single project or even this particular job. I've learned that expertise speaks its own language, and sometimes the most important audience for your innovations exists outside the organizational structures that employ you. Recognition, when it comes from the right sources, doesn't just validate past work. It creates pathways for future impact that you might never have imagined possible. 1 year later, I'm standing in the construction site of Riverside Commons, watching my architectural vision take physical form in concrete, steel, and innovative renewable energy systems. The November morning air carries the scent of fresh lumber and possibility as construction crews install the solar array system that will make this development carbon neutral within 18 months of completion. My hard hat bears the title Senior Environmental Design Architect, but more importantly, it represents the professional recognition that emerged when expertise finally received appropriate acknowledgement. The project has exceeded every projection in my original proposal. The affordable housing component sold out within 3 weeks of opening applications, with a waiting list that extends 6 months into the future. Local businesses are thriving in the commercial spaces designed to support neighborhood entrepreneurs rather than national chains. The community garden has become a gathering place where residents from different economic backgrounds collaborate on sustainability initiatives that extend far beyond our development boundaries. Walking through this space feels like witnessing the physical manifestation of design principles that prioritize community empowerment alongside environmental responsibility. This morning's site visit has a special purpose. Mayor Chen is bringing a delegation from the Federal Housing and Urban Development Office to see the completed first phase of construction. As we gather near the community center that anchors the development's central green space, I notice how naturally people treat me as the project's lead architect rather than a supporting team member. the transformation in professional recognition feels like watching a photograph develop. The image was always there, but it needed the right conditions to become visible. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Chen announces to the assembled group of federal officials, local dignitaries, and media representatives, I want to introduce you to the architect whose innovation made Riverside Commons possible. Imani Johnson didn't just design a sustainable development, she created a new model for how American cities can address affordable housing and environmental responsibility simultaneously. His introduction carries the weight of someone presenting a colleague whose work has transformed how he thinks about urban planning possibilities. The presentation that follows feels like a homecoming to my own expertise. I guide the group through the development, explaining how integrated renewable energy systems reduce residents' utility costs by 60%, describing how mixed-income housing creates economic diversity without segregation, and outlining community programming that generates measurable social benefits. Federal officials take detailed notes and ask sophisticated questions that demonstrate genuine interest in replicating this approach in cities nationwide. HUD Secretary Maria Gonzalez pulls me aside after the formal presentation, her expression warm with professional respect. Ms. Johnson, your work here represents exactly the kind of innovation we need to address America's housing and climate challenges simultaneously. We'd like to discuss a consulting role with our agency, helping other cities implement community-centered sustainable development. The position would be part-time, allowing you to maintain your architectural practice while contributing to national policy development. The offer represents the kind of career opportunity that emerges when expertise receives recognition at appropriate scales. That afternoon, I'm in my office reviewing architectural plans for 3 new sustainable development projects when David stops by with news that makes me smile. The American Institute of Architects wants to feature Riverside Commons in their national sustainability showcase. They're calling your approach the future of community-centered environmental design. Also, he adds with genuine pride, Architectural Digest wants to do a profile piece on you as one of the 30 architects reshaping American cities. His excitement feels authentic, reflecting how external recognition has transformed internal dynamics in ways that benefit everyone. As evening approaches, I drive through the completed sections of Riverside Commons, watching families walk along tree-lined sidewalks and children play in the community spaces I designed to foster intergenerational connection. The development glows with LED lighting powered entirely by renewable energy, creating an atmosphere that feels both environmentally responsible and genuinely welcoming. This is what happens when innovative expertise receives the resources and recognition necessary to flourish. Ideas become communities, and communities become models for positive change. Looking back on this journey, I understand that professional recognition isn't just about individual validation. It's about ensuring that good ideas receive the support necessary to create meaningful impact. When I was just helping out, my innovations remained constrained within collaborative narratives that obscured their true potential. When I claimed ownership of expertise and insisted on appropriate recognition, those same innovations became catalysts for transformation that extends far beyond any single project. What would you accomplish if you stopped minimizing your contributions to make others comfortable and started claiming credit that matches your actual impact? Sometimes the most important professional skill isn't technical expertise. It's the courage to insist that your work be seen and valued according to its true scope and significance. The recognition you deserve isn't something you have to earn from people who are fundamentally looking in another direction. It's something you can claim by presenting your expertise to audiences capable of recognizing innovation when they see it.